Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody, and thanks for taking time out of your day to tune in. I'm gonna have to ask for your grace. Um, I am a hammer swinger and not so much a digital worker, so I'm pretty clumsy with this, and we've got some a little bit of issues. I guess hopefully it wasn't too much trouble trying to log in, but apparently the link wasn't working. So we may have some others trickle in. I sent an email with a new link and we'll see what happens. So um, I don't know how long we'll go. We're probably looking at most likely an hour. It depends on how many questions we get and how long that takes. But I am recording this. I will send out the recording afterwards, hopefully a link, or hopefully it'll work out fine. But so maybe you can review anything that you or revisit anything that you missed. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to open up a room for questions. So you're welcome to ask questions in the chat at any time. And if you just raise your hand at the end, we can uh, talk through questions that way. So I want to start out with a proverb. And this is not to preach at you, but hopefully it's to understand where I'm coming from and where I aspire to be. This is what I call or what has been called uh, abundance proverb. So Proverb 11:24 to the 28, 24 says, "There's one who scatters yet increases more, and there's one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty. The generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered himself. The people will curse him who withholds grain, but blessings will be on the head of him who sells it. He who earnestly seeks good finds favor, but trouble will come to him who seeks evil. And he who trusts his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like foliage." I want to live by that. And so hopefully that'll kind of give you an idea of where I'm trying to come from. Um, so what I want to accomplish here, um, one is I don't want my screen to get all weird. Um, just a second here. Got an echo going on. So I want to give you something to think about. I want to maybe get you thinking about more than you've already thought about. Maybe a few things from my perspective as a builder. What um, you really don't know what you don't know, and so hopefully I can kind of give you some things that um, some extra questions that you might not have thought of to ask. I want to answer your questions, so I want to hopefully create a lot of value and have a format and somewhat of a community where you can ask questions and get real answers. I know that can be hard to get sometimes, depending on who you know, but also answering other people's questions is can be really helpful. Um, so the third thing being to learn, and I want to learn from you what your questions are so that I can better serve and also kind of build a community around this pole barn building. And then at kind of following up everything, I want to present a little presentation on the actual real cost to build a pole barn. I know that's something that's seems to be hard for somebody to ever tell you, and it seems like you got to jump through a bunch of hoops. So I'll give you some real costs. Um, Also, I do, I'll let the cat out of the bag. I do have something to sell, but I think it'll be a great, excellent value and it'll pay for itself. But I'm hoping that you'll get plenty of value out of this free stuff to answer these four questions. So I want to start out with a little story. I used to live in Alaska and I used to do a lot of repairs. I would repair shingle roofs sometimes, and where I lived was in Ketchikan, which is way down on the southeast side of Alaska, and it's on an island. It's very windy, very wet, and things just um, fall apart all the time. And I was asked one time to put up a metal roof, which I've always been a strong believer in. And we tried something new, which was the the kind that has the hidden fasteners. And I ordered that stuff. I put up the roof, and it was a little bit flimsy. And I got to admit, um, I was worried that it wouldn't withstand the terrible weather in Alaska. Um, After I put that roof up, everything looked good. It was a standing seam roof. It went together great. I took a trip to Adak, Alaska, and here on the map, if you'll look, Adak, Alaska is in the middle of the Bering Sea. It's a small island and it has caribou on it. And my family and I went there to hunt caribou. And what's cool about Adak, or really weird about Adak, is back in World War II, the Japanese they bombed one of these islands over here, and what they were trying to do was get access to a naval base, or to build a naval base and be able to, hit us during World War II. Well, our Navy went to Adak and they built a base to counter their attacks overnight, and they had um, up to 1997, they maintained that base, and there was like 6,000 people that lived there, or 6,000 soldiers that lived there, plus their families, and they had this whole community built on this little bitty island way out in the middle of the Bering Sea. And in 97, the military said, we're out, and they just up and left. They also, a long time ago, they planted caribou, and that's why I was there. And we got to go over there, and it's like a ghost town, like a complete ghost town. And turns out in this area, the weather was awful. I mean, I'm talking hurricane force, gale force winds all the time, rain, uh, snow, salty air. And when we were kind of touring the place, I'll show you a couple of pictures that I picked up off the internet because I didn't take enough pictures while I was there. These houses and apartments and shops were just completely falling apart because they were not maintained. So this was like 20 years. Yeah, I guess it was like 20 when I was there, about 20 years after they left. Who knows how long they'd been built before they left. But this is just kind of what some of these places look like. But what I want to point out is, lo and behold, a lot of these roofs were that standing seam roof that I just installed, and they look great. The whole place was completely falling apart, and all of the only thing good was these metal roofs. So kind of leads you to what I kind of started about when I started building was, I want to build something that lasts, that has no maintenance, and um, has is just completely you just build it forever. That's what you want. I mean, other than building stone, I was always drawn to metal. So I started I started pursuing building things like that, and we have gotten into just building pole barns. So what is a let me get where get to my notes here. Um, so why is a pole barn related to all of this versus a stick build? And I know that some people are coming from different angles at this. Some of you may not know anything about it. Some of you may know a ton about it, but the reason why we build a pole barn versus a stick build is because the bracing on a pole barn can be horizontal, and the sheet metal that we use for these metal buildings need to be screwed down in a horizontal method. Whereas a stick built, everything is vertical, and in order to use that kind of roofing and siding, you need to change the direction of your studs and your supports. And so if you were to use the stick built, method, then you're using twice as much lumber because you're throwing up vertical studs, and then you got to put horizontal laths anyways. So it makes a lot more sense to use a pole barn building technique. Now, it's really hard for a lot of people to wrap their mind around it because we've had a system for years and years on on unbuilding stick built buildings. And so most of our expertise in the field is all around that. And I think we miss out on some of the benefits for the pole barn technique because we're stuck on a building technique that's worked for us for a ton of time. So part of what I want to do here is kind of open your eyes to maybe why the pole barn kind of stands out in ways that's overlooked. And for one, they're just easy to build. They take a little bit less manpower. For two, they use a little bit less lumber, and and three, they're just structurally they withhold a lot of weight. So it's a really good it's a really good way to build, but they they stand out in being able to put the metal siding and roofing on with less materials. Um, so right now, I think a lot of us I kind of ask the question like, what's your motivation for building a pole barn? And I think here's what I think it is, and maybe I'll be surprised not to, but it's been my experience that, especially since COVID and our kind of housing crisis, that everybody is, hopefully y'all are hearing me. My internet's getting kind of weird. Um, I hate when I get a message saying my internet's unstable. Um, but anyways, so where was I at? Yeah, with the kind of the housing crisis, there's been a ton of people that are trying to get out of the subdivisions. I think maybe because they were trying to buy in a subdivision, and with the crisis, everybody was it's hard to get a house, so it's like, well, let's get some land and we'll build our own. So there's a lot of people considering pole barns and building a barn dominium, which would be a house inside of a pole barn. There's a lot of people considering that, and I think for very good reason. I think it's the trend of the future. I think that it's gonna be so prevalent in our building that everybody needs to learn the new new skill and get away from the stick build and start building pole barns to meet this market. So I think I'm talking to two or three different types of people. One is like, how do I build my own? How do I save money to put this together and what I need to know to do it. And then another type that might be here is I'd like to start a business. What I need to know to start a business to build pole barns, and I think um, I think we can support as many builders as we want. So like I'm not worried about, I'm in the Boise area. I'm not worried about flooding the market per se because there's not enough builders. And so the more the merrier. And I hope to kind of change the culture around how we build. And that's part of why we're doing this. So I want to talk about um, architecture. So let's go to, I want to make a point here. Um, and this is our modern spec home. And I don't know what these cost in everybody's neighborhood. These are about a $450,000 house in our neighborhoods, I think. Um, and they have all different shapes and sizes. You've seen them, but when I drive by them, I'm looking at them like, wow, some architect is trying to make this building stand out from the next one. And it seems like they're trying to make it hard to build. So, um, the point I'm trying to make is there's a disconnect between the needs of us and the system of building, because we have architects, we have engineers, and we have builders, and then we have owners. And I'm speaking more towards the barn dominium folks here. I know that there's some of you that just want an awesome shop, and that's cool too. But we can talk more on that. But what what I'm trying to the point that I'm trying to make is like if you can't afford a $450,000 spec home and you don't want one anyways, a lot of what you're paying for is the architect to kind of show his pretty little brushes, which frankly I'm not sure it's all that pretty. That's one. For two, it's making a builder have all kinds of hard struggles. Look at all the funny roof lines and the funny shapes and the build outs. If we're in a housing crisis and it's hard for you to build, why would you make it harder? Why would you add cost? So we're sort of getting like Corvettes rammed down our throats when, we may just want to, have ton pickup. So building a pole barn can get you out of that mindset and method. Now, I'm not saying that um, I'm not saying that it has to be ugly. The other side of this is most people think of pole barns or barns in general as looking like a welding shop, and most of them do because we have no imagination. Almost everywhere you go that sells the metal for these buildings has all kinds of really cool colors. I want to illustrate this. This is from Treasure Valley Steel, who I use in Boise and Ontario. And these are just a few of the standout colors that I'm not sure I've ever seen. And if you'll notice this naive, I don't know why they call it naive wood. That's kind of stupid. I don't like it. But it looks like wood, and it has a full wood grain pattern. And if you saw it in person, you would be really surprised. Um, Unfortunately, they put this picture on a style of metal that looks like metal, but I'll show you. They have a board and batten style that just looks like wood, and then there's a grayer wood over here to the right. They have rust and all kinds of colors. But what I'm getting at is you'll pay a little bit more, but there's some really cool colors that you don't, it doesn't look like you're building you know, Uncle Carl's welding shop. So here's a piece of metal. So the standing seam, that's the roof that I put on uh, in Alaska. You'll notice that it is a little bit thinner metal than what all the other metals are, and that's what kind of scared me. I'm like, is this even going to work? But it did. Uh, this board and batten, I have never got to put this up, but this works just like the standing seam. But if you did a wood pattern in this and you got creative, you could have an amazing looking building. And the way that we build these things, there's no exposed wood, all metal with 40-year guaranteed paint. Um, all your eaves, your soffits, everything is completely enclosed in metal, and it makes for if you choose your colors well, it will make for a gorgeous looking building. And so something to consider. Here's a couple of their panels I thought I'd also point out. Now, most of the time I use this tough rib only. The one that I use has the ribs are 1 foot apart instead of this 9 inches apart. And I do that because it's really a lot easier to measure and do your angles with the 1 foot ribs. It's not on this page, but there's a lot of different profiles to choose from. So if you've never shopped for the metal, it'd be interesting to go ahead and look into that and kind of design something that's kind of neat. Um, so also um, so that's kind of a disconnect with the architecture. Like nobody really knows what they're doing or what they're paying for. So we can get away from that. Another part is um, there's problems with the engineering. Okay, so building pole barns has been around forever, but there's really not a standard system to building pole barns. Therefore, the average guy goes and needs engineered plans. He goes to his engineer, says, "Can you build me a pole barn, or can you give me plans for a pole barn?" And they are absolutely happy to give you plans. But it's been my experience because I've built under several that they all do something really different. Many do something really weird, and they have no connection with the builders. So I'm trying to build what they put on plans, and I am like absolutely struggling to make sense of what they want to do. They're using materials that's hard to get, or they're putting bracing in weird places. And as a builder, I'm completely frustrated with engineers, completely. And most people that I know that are building have the same frustrations. And not only that, they take forever to get your plans out. So I am personally a engineered minded person. I remember walking through my first house that was framed, and I think I had it figured out within like 5 or 10 minutes. I could probably build that house, um, from scratch, um, without, needing to look anymore. Just because that's just the way my mind works as an engineer, and that's not always in combination with a builder. A lot of times you'll have people who can build, but they need plans and they need to think through that. So with me, it's kind of like both. It just kind of comes natural. So everything that I do, I'm looking at the engineered portion, and I'm always trying to find something better and a better way to go. Um, so we have that disconnect with the engineers that makes things extra hard. I'm also a cheapskate, so I hate spending money that does not need to be spent, and it is truly. It seems like all my engineers are trying to do something that's expensive for no reasons, for no good reason. And so um, we, I want to highlight the problem that there's a disconnect between engineering and building, and then also building in the homeowner or shop owner. There's also a disconnect there. So we have this totally broken system, and hopefully you're embarking on um, something that maybe you didn't even think about, that you're solving a lot of these problems by cutting out the architect, the engineer, and being the builder yourself, and the owner. So we're going to solve a lot of problems. Um, the other thing is um, when you're embarking on all of this yourself, the first time at least you don't really have a system in place. So like, and by system, I mean like when I build, I've learned all the tricks of the trade to get what I'm trying to accomplish done efficiently. I have the right tools. I know when to do what. I know what's going to cause trouble down the line. So I have a system. So you may find yourself understanding how something's built, but without the system, you can just plan on having some hiccups, or sometimes they're pretty large hiccups. But that you will be in the middle of the build and you did something prematurely, or did something wrong, and you got to redo it. And sometimes that costs money, sometimes it just costs time. Um, so this is another just identifying some issues with this whole embarking on the building pole barns. So all of that said, I want to, let's see, let's go to why pole barn should stand out, and that I don't think people are understanding or are given uh, why people are what people are missing with the pole barn. So our modern homes and buildings, if you really step back and you look at them, they changed building the way that they did from probably 100 years ago to what we are in now because of the advent of bat insulation. Beforehand, there wasn't insulation wasn't really a thing, so they actually built houses and structures by just crisscrossing boards, really. I bought a house one time that was built in 1924. And I thought it had studded walls, and it didn't. It just had crisscross boards, 3 layers, horizontal, vertical, horizontal, and that was the walls. But the reason why they did that was they were trying to fight drafts, and insulation really wasn't a thing. And so now we have insulation, but here's the thing is like it's been 100 years and there has not been any shifts in the way that we build. And if you step back and you look at it, we are building our houses and our shops and everything with the assumption that energy is cheap. And so therefore, I propose that we're sort of slaves to energy. We're slaves to the electricity and gas or however you're heating. And so, honestly, we're living in a bunch of tents because the assumption is energy is cheap. Now we have actually cheap insulation. And I try to tell everybody that I build for is like you have to reconsider insulation. Excuse me. So, what I mean by that is why not build a Yeti? Like instead of building the $25 Walmart igloo cooler, why not build a Yeti that keeps ice for 5 days? Um, there's no reason why we should not be actually filling our walls deeply with insulation. And I think pole barns are uniquely suited to build to do serious insulation. And by serious insulation, so like here in our area in Idaho, we are looking for. There's really no standard for your floor, but I say put foam board under your slabs. 2 inches of foam board. That's like 11, an R11. And then for walls, the standard is 21, 19 or 21, an R19 or 21. Um, I'm shooting for 40. And then for your attic, I'm shooting, I don't remember what the attic rating was for the standard, but it's 2 to 3 times is what we can shoot for because we can blow in insulation in an attic and make it super deep. And so what happens if you have a R value of like 60 or 80 in your attic and 40 or 50 in your walls? Well, guess what? You live in a Yeti and you can light a candle and heat your house in the winter, almost. Your body heat will almost heat the house if you completely insulate it. So what we're doing here is as we talk about insulation, we're looking at 3 different factors. One, we're looking at the R value, which is basically the how much uh, how much heat, how fast heat can travel through the voids of your wall. Okay. The other factor we're looking at um, is conduction. Okay, so conduction is where how heat travels through an object from one side to the other. So like if you say if you're looking at a red iron building that has a big metal I-beam, it has a high conductive value because heat travels through that metal pretty rapidly and it can travel from one side all the way into the inside. And so like or let's say your heat is on the inside of the building and the cold is on the outside, that metal will conduct um, that energy and it will be cold on the inside and therefore it'll sweat. So wood is a little bit better. This is why pole barns, I like pole barns, especially in this higher country, is because we still have video. Okay. It's because the wood is doesn't conduct that energy as bad. Now, a stick built building, because of the way that the studs are all vertical and you don't have insulation from the front or the back of the studs, it conducts energy through each one of those studs. And it's on average, 25% of all of your walls is studded, is taken up by those studs, conducting the energy and losing your heat and cooling 25% of those walls because of the way that that's built. So on a pole barn, if you do the standard girts, which are the girts are on the outside of the posts, you have a post every 8 or 10 feet, and those do or will conduct energy between the posts, but they're a tiny bit. It's just 8 or 10 feet. And then you have this void in between your girts on the outer wall and in between those posts that is a big giant void. And it's super easy to just drop insulation in there. So like your 6 inch insulation can be like an R20, R21 easily, and you can insulate that for relatively cheap. Matter of fact, you if you're building a house, your HVAC system could be sized down so far as that you'll save money because you tripled your budget in insulation, and then your HVAC system can be a lot cheaper. Um, but anyway, so the pole barn gives you that void, which is absolutely the best thing in the world for adding insulation. So what I do, um, well, let me skip on to the third thing, which is your air penetration. And air penetration is, gosh, um, a lot of people's problem. If you have any leaks or holes around windows or doors, plug outlets on the outside, the cold air or the hot air from the outside can penetrate the house, and it can, through a breeze, it can wander into your house. And all your insulation is for naught. It's just like you could have the best insulation in the world, and if you open your door and leave it open all day, it's going to be cold inside. So you really have to conquer the air penetration. So this is how I like to build and how I suggest everybody builds. Um, I like spray foam. Closed self spray foam is awesome and it's really expensive. But what I like it for is not so much the R value that it adds, it's the sealing value. So we'll take a pole barn and we'll build a shell, and we will spray that with about 1 inch of that foam, which cuts down your cost, but it gives a fantastic sealing. So it will seal off the whole structure to where there's zero air penetration. And from that start, you're just absolutely um, you've conquered a ton of problems with insulation. And then from there, then I will um, do batt insulation between the posts. And depending on if you're in a shop, we'll probably stop there on a shop because shops usually don't have, you don't heat those up to 80 degrees or cool them off as, quite as much. But for a house, or for a shop, you can build your wall on as girts on the inside of those posts and just go with it. But for a house, I like to take a 2x4 wall and stand it up on the inside of those posts, just like you did stick built. So you would have 2x4 studded walls, and you would just frame out a series of walls all on the inside, and then insulate those with your R13 batt insulation. And the way that those studs are arranged, they're not really connecting or touching any other studs that are touching the outer wall, so you don't have as much of the conductive problems. And you will have your so you fought your conduction, you fought your air penetration, and your R values just through the roof because now you have a wall that's almost a foot thick. um, you have a 2x4 insulated wall, and then you have in between the posts batt insulation, and then you have spray foam insulation up against the metal, and it just creates this awesome insulated building. So we did one house a couple or 3 years ago, and they put in three. It's about a I want to say it's about a 2,000 square foot house. They put in three mini split air conditioners for all of their air, and what they did was what they did was they had one in their bedroom, one in a spare bedroom, and one in their living area. And they would come home, let's say they would go to bed, turn off all of the mini splits except for their bedroom, I believe, and then for air conditioning. And this was when we were like 100, 105, 110 degrees. They would leave the one in their bedroom on I want to say it was 70 degrees. And then when they got up, they would turn that off, eat breakfast, they would go to work, and when they came back home, and I don't know if that's 4 or 5 o'clock, they said that their house would be roughly 75 degrees after being gone all day long, hot summer heat. And then they would turn on their two of the mini splits, cool it back down to 70. When they went to bed, they would turn off the living area and just keep their bedroom on. And I think their electric bill was something like $60 a month, which is pretty impressive. And that's kind of the goal that we're trying to do. So I want to mention that insulation is almost um, is one of the biggest things about building pole barns that we can gain and get this sort of a financial freedom, or maybe not being restricted to having power all the time. You know, you could have a pretty small pellet stove or something to heat your house, pretty small air conditioning needs. Maybe that brings solar into a conversation now that you don't have such a kilowatt need for power. So that, let's see, we've got insulation there, disconnector engineers. So that kind of leads us to um, kind of what we've been doing. So my company is basically me and my son, and we build pole barns. Well, in order to solve some of these issues, we've come up with a system so that we build. I call it the cutlass method, for one, because we're building all kinds of buildings for all kinds of people, and they we have engineers from different places asking to do different things, and all the time we're like, man, I wish we could do something different. I wish we could build it our own way, which we can. You can build my own house, but I wish we could figure out a way that we could use a really good system of building, the right kind of engineering, and make it easier on everybody, so we don't have to jump through these hurdles of just weirdness. So we came up with the cutlass method, and we call it cutlass because I got tired of getting a chop saw out and having one guy for a day and a half just cutting 2x6s all day long, cutting 2x6s. We used to have these giant heaps of lumber, cutoffs, and we'd have to burn them or haul them off. And I thought that was really dumb. I figured, why can't we just engineer where we don't have to cut anything? So um, I started drawing plans, which a lot of times I do draw my own plans, but I started drawing plans, and with that in mind, let's save all this time by not having to cut everything. Let's just use off the shelf lumber and cut down on our waste and time. And so I developed this cutlass build. And then also we took all of our systems of building and how we do it, and we sort of mastered them. And what my son and I did was all last year, we filmed and did uh, a video tutorial on how to build with the Cutlass method. And we filmed absolutely every step. We talked through each one of the each step and why and when we do things. And we put together a full-on video series of this Cutlass build. And our hope was that we could sell plans for and pole barns are in general, unless you do something way out there, they're pretty much the same thing. Like it's just how wide are your trusses and how many bays do you want? I mean, they're pretty much built all the same way. Do you want to lean to or no? So we put together a system where we could teach you how to do all of that, regardless of what it is. And that's what we're kind of in business of doing right now. And I will um, I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit, but last, let's get to what it does cost to build a pole barn. And I'll bring that up. Let's see here. Okay, so that's our new business, the Wise Man Builds. Um, so we've got um, so this is the building that we actually filmed. I've got a name for this. This building is it's 36 foot wide in the front and it is 40 foot uh, deep. So this lean-to is 12 foot wide and 40 foot deep also. So this is what I consider to be the probably the most average size build that a lot of people want to do. Now, I suggest you build a giant pole barn for yourself because you never can have enough space and everything that I suggest you build as big as you can afford because you'll fill it up. That's just the way it is. But it seems like this is what everyone kind of can afford. So this is pretty average. Um, so this building, as you can see here, is uh, in total width is 48 foot and some change, 36 foot wide at the front. 12 foot wide doors with 14 foot tall is very typical. I love doing these because at 14 foot, you can get anything street legal in there. So if you want to pull in a giant RV or a semi, you should be able to get in there. This build has all the trusses are hipped and vaulted ceilings. So, and the reason why I would do that is because you can put a second uh, floor in here. So let me back up. Your walls typically, when you start getting over 16 foot tall on your walls, engineering starts getting a little bit weird, and it seems like it's a point to where you start paying a lot more. So we want to keep our walls around 16 foot. The problem with a 16-foot wall is if you say you want a two-story something in there, maybe it's a shop, maybe it's a barn door, but you do want a second floor, doesn't matter. Um, let's say you build an 8 foot wall because nobody wants too short. And then your floor needs to be, let's just estimate around 1 foot. That leaves you only 7 foot for the ceiling your of your second floor, which I don't really like. Now, when you get these trusses, um, uh, they kind of have a heel on them, which brings them down in below that 16 foot mark on the inside. So if you look at the picture here, we've got 14 foot 6.5 on the inside, but with the vaulted part, you've got your 17.5 foot in the middle. So if let's say you built a 8 foot, uh, uh, your lower floor was at 8 foot and you had 1 foot worth of floor joists and whatnot. It is a little tight at the edge of the building, but in the middle of the room, and you're almost 9 foot. So um, it's it's a good combination. Went ahead and did it this way so that it could kind of fit everyone's needs. So as you see, the overall building height's like 23 foot. There's a lot of building codes that say keep it under 24. So that's another reason. So anyways, um, also, let's see, we put a lean-to. Lean-tos are really cool because you don't have to condition a space and store stuff, and they look really good. Here's a picture of those vaulted trusses on the inside. And we, just because it looks a lot better, we put 2 foot overhangs. It is way simpler to not put any overhangs at all, but your building just looks like trash. So we always like to do 2 foot overhangs. And if you look in the picture, you'll see that there's, the soffits are metal. Everything's metal except for the wood beams here, which were actually going to get, after this picture, was going to get wrapped in metal as well. So this building should have zero maintenance on it, and that's what we like. Also, we poured slab on the inside, and we in our building package we teach you how 2 guys can put this whole building up as well as pour your own slab. So we put this building together as our kind of a demo, and we did it for a cool guy who works for the Air Force. But so this building kind of as it is, it's just a shell as you saw. But with concrete, this building is not a little over 1900. I think it's 1920 square foot. If I'm building this for anybody else, I'm charging around 55 to $57 a foot. So your cost out the door for me to put this up for you is 100, a little over 100,000. So that's real time numbers, just something to kind of give you a something to relate to. So now let's go over what you would pay um, if you didn't hire me to do it. Okay. So these are just an illustration of the bid request. So with this build, um, I have sheets for bid requests, and one over here would be your bids for trusses, and you could print these sheets out, and you could call up every truss maker in the valley, and you could send it to them and ask for a bid. And then another bid over here would be for your lumber, and another bid would be for your metal. So that's something that's really important, because otherwise, if you just have plans, you're going to have to count sticks and come up with your materials list, and that's actually very hard to dial in. So I have a materials list for this everything in this build, and then we would send these materials off. Now, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Uh, Now this is where I'm at in Idaho. I imagine most of you are in this area. I would consider us an average cost of living, so I think maybe my bids are probably pretty typical for everybody's except maybe California, or this West Coast. I don't know what the East Coast looks like, but I would imagine that our prices are really similar. So I put in a bid for the metal. It came back for that building at a little over $9,000. My lumber and hardware bid. So my metal, I just sent it to the people that I use here. There's probably 3 or 4 places you could go where I'm at, but I like to use Treasure Valley Steel, and so that's what they gave me. If I was to bid out this building, I would send it around. Um, Lumber, I gave this to Home Depot because I didn't want to bother everybody. So this is what Home Depot's lumber bid came back to. And all you do is just print it out and hand it to them, say, give me a bid for that. And it has materials and everything that's necessary on it. Um, so one thing I would suggest, though, when you're doing this yourself, go ahead and get your bids from Home Depot and Lowe's. But I have a lot better experience with a supplier that supplies contractors primarily. So like, and sometimes they're even cheaper. Like Franklin Building Supply in our neighborhood is better than Home Depot because of just their market. See, Home Depot serves more homeowners, and they don't have the right people building your they'll short you, they'll give you the wrong stuff. There's you If you do Home Depot because it's cheaper, which I've done, just factor in some time to clean up some mistakes. Okay, they may not it may not be all it's cracked up to be. So a lot of times I will choose to use the guys, even especially if it's similar prices, or maybe a little bit more of a higher cost, just so that I don't have to deal with deliveries and stuff that are wrong. My truss supplier came in at 3,600 bucks. Posts, and I like to use the some laminated posts. They're like extra straight and they're stronger. You can use the conventional 6x6s or whatever the plans call for. But I order my posts separately. I also give, like I gave Home Depot the chance on the posts as well. But I order them separate, uh, and it gives you the opportunity to, like, so if you threw all this stuff on, like, there's some places that will sell all of this, and you should give them a chance to bid. But if you have a trust maker that's going to give you a better price, it's better to itemize it. So I guess that's where I'm going. And so that's what my post came out. Oh, let me back up. So right now we're at 22,500 bucks for those materials. Then you need to figure in your overhead door. Overhead doors are absolutely stupid. They're like expensive as all get out. I don't know how you can get $2,000 worth of materials, but that's the cheapest one you can find probably for a 12 by 14. They'll run all the way up to $9,000. And here's my take on overhead doors. You can't save money putting them up yourself. These door manufacturers, they have the market on it. If you hire them to install, it will cost almost the exact same amount as if you went and bought the materials yourself and installed them yourself. And it seems like every time I install them myself, I get two left rails and not one right. And there's hardware that's missing and it takes days and I hate doing it and it just doesn't make sense. So I suggest that you farm that out, get somebody to put in your overhead doors that does it every day, and you'll be happier and expect to pay a good price. I put $3,500. That's what I would do. That's how much I would plan to pay for each overhead door that I wanted. Then you got concrete for your post holes. I do concrete in my post holes. There is another option for using these metal brackets where you wet set the brackets in. I've done that too. You probably can see them. Um, you probably can see them behind me here in that picture. That was a build that we did. They're pretty cool, but engineering has a tough time with those, because these posts in the concrete are give the wind shear values that they're looking for. For a lot of times, you have like 120-mile-an-hour wind shear that they're looking for, and they have a hard time getting those numbers. The engineers do from the wet set bracket. So we put these in the ground. I think we can talk more on it, but I think there's no problem at all because we can keep these dry. So this concrete here cost at our local cost about 3 grand to set these posts, bringing our price up 29,000. There's me and my son there pouring this slab. Just two of us. We did this monster, 36 by 40 slab all by ourselves. And just the concrete alone was 7,400 for that. That's a 5-inch slab on the inside and 4-inch on that porch. So as you see, our price is climbing up to 36,000. And then we're going to talk about equipment. If you are cheap, like most people, you think you're going to do it on ladders, and I absolutely strongly suggest you think about renting some equipment. So this telehandler here is worth five guys. It is absolutely the most used thing on the job site. I recommend getting you a telehandler. A scissor lift is, you know, way better than a ladder. I promise you. We can bang things out with a scissor or rent a scissor lift. A few days with a skid steer, drilling your holes and doing a little bit of dirt work. Um, so I'm estimating 6,000 for rental equipment. And obviously, if you have your own equipment, you don't need that. But I bet most people don't. Also, I'm going to go ahead and just to make numbers real, give you some extra tools, some extra hand tools or whatnot. So give you a little $1,500 spending allowance. So just materials on this whole build, we're looking at close to 44,000 bucks. And remember, I'm charging you 105,000 to build it. So now plans and engineering is going to cost you a typical amount of $3,000. And what we've tried to accomplish with the Wise Man builds is we give you the full set of plans. Now, they're not engineered. They would have to be what we call redlined. So if you took this to an engineer and said, here's the plans, I need you to redline it. And what they would do is they would look at your site and say, oh, well, your snow load's less or more, so you need a little bit bigger posts or whatnot. But they would go through and redline it and put their stamp on it. It's a lot cheaper than them drawing up your plans and doing engineers. And so for our package was you would get the plans already ready to rock. You would get all the bid request forms ready to print out and send out. Um, so that's the only way of really knowing how much your building's going to cost. And then we did all these instructional videos. There's hours of them. But the idea is you should sit down and watch a video for 20 minutes and go build. So we think it would be pretty darn great. And what we've done is we've normally, so what I'm charging is 4,900 bucks. And for folks that are on this call, I've got a 24-hour offer of 50% off on that. So basically they pay for themselves for 2,400 bucks. You're already paying that for engineering. So that's going to cut your engineering cost out and bring your cost for that building, at least for $47,000, which is a savings of half doing it yourself. Um, for myself and my my son, we can build that in uh, about 3 weeks. So, okay, I think I've said a lot. Let me see if we can. Let me see if I got any questions going. No questions yet. All right. So, does anybody have any questions? And maybe we can open it up to that. I think we've been going an hour. Appreciate your patience. So, just raise your hand, turn your camera on, and don't forget your mic.
Nick, this is Philip. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I was late for the Zoom.
No
Had
big.
a had an appointment that came up. Um, I'm not ready to build my shop. I want to build a shop. I'm not ready to build it. I'm going through some personal things right now with my wife, and once that's all past me, um, I I'd like to take maybe some time to think about exactly how I want my shop. And so this offer that you're offering, um, you said in the next how long? 24 hours?
Yeah, it's 24 hours uh for that discount anyways.
I was just wondering if that can be like postponed for a couple of months, or if that's just off, if I wait a couple of months to put this plan together, because I no way can work on my plans. My wife's not going to be with me much longer.
Okay.
So um, I'm just putting this thing on hold, basically.
I'll tell you what, so you should get an email if you haven't already that has that offer, but also on that email will have my email address. Why don't you email me directly and we can kind of um
Okay.
work through that and see what we can come up with. I'm sure we can figure something out.
Yeah, I'm working up against a back, I'm in the country and in the county, Canyon. I have an easement on my backside of 20 feet, and then I've got a drain field behind my house. And I'm trying to get the right shop that's going to comply with those easements. And so it's just, there's going to be a lot of time with planning and zoning and
Yeah.
Southwest District Health, and it's just going to be a few months before I get moving on this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's at least you're starting at the right time. Too many people do it in like July and like start rushing to get in before the snow hits or something. And but yeah, you're starting at the right time. Possibly you should, hopefully be able to get something going before end of summer.
Okay, so I had one more question, and I'm also trying to save money all the time. I built the house that I'm in using subs, but I was the contractor. And what's do you have a list of subs that I could like I'm almost 70 years old and my health is okay, but I can't get up on a roof and pull sheets up and screw them down. Do you have a list of subs of people that you would recommend? Uh, I know that's cutting into your business, but is that something you could provide to us?
Yeah, potentially. We, for the most part, um, most of us kind of build from kind of start to finish. So we might, to be able to part it out might be trouble, but if you wanted somebody to help come in and do the build, we can maybe hook you up with some help there.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff I could do, but I can't and I won't have anybody here to help me. So it's
Yeah,
just like one person trying to do all that with a scissor lift or something is just you need somebody on the other end
yeah, for
and
sure.
so I know it's going to cost more, but than trying to do it myself.
I see.
Don't know where to go always.
Yeah, well, utilize that email there of mine,
Okay.
and we can work through some of that, and I'll be happy to help. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
All right. Appreciate it.
You bet. Anybody else have anything they want to ask? Okay, let's see. We got Curtis's. He's looking to start a pole barn business. Cool, Curtis. Yeah, I remember talking to you anyways. So good to see you again. Um, hoping to get the basics on a pole barn build. Uh, yeah, I didn't look at the name. Who was that I just talked to? Was it Philip? Okay. So Dom, hopefully we covered some of that basics. Uh, yeah, let me know. And is yeah, we can chat after the meeting if you like, or if you just turn off your mic, I can probably hear you, Dom. I mean, excuse me, turn on your mic. Okay, cool. Yeah, I see it coming off and on. So yeah, I'll stay on the meeting and we'll see how we can connect. Um, Good question, Shallow. How many different designs do we have? So right now we just have the 136 by 40 with the one lean-to, and we're currently under the depending on needs, we're looking for who wants what. So if you wanted to if you wanted to adjust that and say, hey, I want one with two lean-tos, then we would need to pump out new plans for that and kind of put that on the work order and make new plans for the two lean-tos or no lean-tos, or we want it to go 80 foot, who knows. So there is a spot on the wisemanbuilds.com. That's where our website is. And there's a spot there where you can put in a kind of an order to see what how you can modify things and kind of customize what you're actually looking for. Understand that not everybody's looking for the exact same building. We just wanted to get something on the market and kind of get it going, and then we'll take orders and build those plans. Now, the videos are we tried to make them where they would fit any kind of building because so we did, taught you how to do a lean-to. We taught you how to do the roofs and a flat wall, and how to, frame out your doors and windows and all that stuff. So that should be kind of pat. Now, especially you like Curtis, one thing to consider, especially as you're wanting to learn to these this is a very cheap training on how to build a pole barn. So I would even recommend, you know, getting the whole shebang with the lumber list and everything so that you can kind of get a good feel for what you're actually turning in to to the county or city, and for the lists. And like I say, like, it's, my barn's kind of proprietary, but if you can learn how to build in this way, more power to you, man. Like I hope to, um, my hope is that it will take all of that learning curve and you won't be three or four buildings into putting together your own stuff and and trying to figure out, well, we did that wrong. So let's, on the next one we'll do a little better here and there. But like hopefully through the videos you can sit down and watch those and get a good feel for, okay, I feel pretty confident that we can like not have that learning curve. And so jump right in. Um, so and thanks, Nikki. Okay, well, any other questions? If you otherwise, I'll give us just a pause to make sure there's not any other questions. It's really good to ask your questions in front of the group because there is obviously um, there's a lot of things you don't know to ask sometimes, and it's, I know that for me, somebody's idea will spark another thought and another question. So, um, yeah, raise that hand or jump in there. Okay, so hopefully everybody has got my email. So if you have other questions, just let me know. I will hang on here and text you, Dom. And otherwise, thanks for attending. I hope it was helpful. Um, and yeah, appreciate it.